My name is Sarah, and I've always been drawn to the hidden corners of the world, especially places steeped in folklore. That's what brought me to the Appalachians, the old logging trails, the forgotten hollers, the whispers of ancient myths. One legend I heard was about Black-Eyed Ben, a cursed hermit said to roam these very mountains. They said he couldn't speak, but he could mimic any sound he had ever heard. A spooky campfire tale, I thought, perfect for a long solo hike. The day started out clear. I set off on a lesser used trail, camera in hand, eager to capture the rugged beauty. I hummed an old folk song my grandmother used to sing, stopping now and then to take pictures of moss-covered rocks and towering pines. As the afternoon wore on, the sky grew overcast, and a thick, oppressive silence fell over the woods. I realised I wandered off from my marked path. My phone had no signal. Panic started to set in. I tried to retrace my steps, but everything looked the same. The sun was dipping below the ridge, painting the sky in bruised purples and greys. And that's when I heard it. A snapping twig. It was faint, just beyond the tree line, but distinct. I froze, listening. Then, a crow's call, sharp and clear. I thought nothing of it at first, wildlife. But a minute later, from the same direction, came a low, mournful hoot, a perfect imitation of an owl I heard earlier that morning. My blood ran cold. I started walking faster, trying to convince myself that it was just a coincidence, that my mind was playing tricks. I heard a distant car horn, a faint, almost ghostly honk from behind me. No cars could get out here. Then, a few seconds later, the sound of my own humming, the old folk song my grandmother used to sing. It was distorted, echoing, but unmistakably my voice, echoing back to me from the deepening gloom of the forest. I broke into a run, my heart hammering against my ribs. The woods were growing darker, the trees blurring into walls. The sounds pursued me, gaining speed. The rustle of leaves, a small animal shriek, the muffled thud of my own panicked footsteps, all perfectly mimicked, getting closer, closer. I stumbled upon a small cave, more of an overhang really. It was nestled into the side of a rocky bluff. I scrambled inside, pressing myself against the damp stone, trying to control my ragged breathing. I pulled my knees to my chest, covering my mouth with my hand, praying it hadn't seen me. The sounds outside were silent, the woods were utterly still. The silence stretched, vast and terrifying, what felt like an eternity. I thought, I'm safe, it's gone. Then, from the darkness just beyond the cave's opening, clear as a bell, came my grandmother's voice. It was soft, reedy, exactly as I remembered it from my childhood.
Sarah, my sweet girl, are you there? Come out, darling, it's getting cold. Please, come out.
It was perfect. The inflection, the slight tremor in her voice, the loving tone. My grandmother, who has been dead for 10 years. My mind screamed in protest, but my body wanted to obey. It was the most comforting, familiar sound, yet the most horrifying thing I have ever heard. I pressed my face into my knees, tears streaming down my cheeks, squeezing my eyes shut, just trying to block out the impossible, terrifying mimic cry. I didn't move. I just sat there, listening to my dead grandmother's plead for me to come out, knowing that if I did, I would never hear another sound again. I don't know how long it lasted, but I stayed there until the first rays of dawn broke through the trees, and the voice finally faded. I ran until I found the road. I never went back to those woods, and now, sometimes, when I'm alone, I hear a faint, distorted echo of my own voice, whispering my name, just at the edge of hearing. It's a reminder that Ben isn't just a legend. He heard me, he knows me, and he's still out there. My name is Daniel, and for the past 4 months I've been living in Fire Watchtower 7, deep in the Monongahela National Forest. It was just me, the tower, and miles of uninterrupted Appalachian wilderness. The isolation was the draw, a clean break from the world, a chance to clear my head. My only contact was a crackling radio, and the nearest town was a good 4-hour drive away. It was peaceful at first, the vast green canopy, the crisp mountain air, the satisfaction of a job well done. But as the weeks bled into months, the solitude started to feel less like freedom and more like exposure. The first oddity was the smell of smoke. It would come and go, faint at first, then strong enough to make my eyes water, even on days when the forest was damp and there hadn't been lightning striking weeds. It was a sweet, acrid smell, like burning leaves and something else, something sickly. I'd scan the horizon with my binoculars, check my maps, but there was never a plume, never a source. Then came the figures, small, carefully constructed twig effigies. They started appearing on the bottom step of my tower, then on the landing, then right outside my door. They were crude, like stick figures, but they always had a distinct, unsettling head, a piece of bark or a knotted root. I'd toss them into the woods, thinking it was just some local kids trying to play a prank, but the next morning there'd be another, sometimes 2, waiting for me, always facing into the tower. The radio, my only lifeline, began to act up. It would emit strange, non-human sounds, a series of clicks and static that wasn't just interference. It sounded almost deliberate, like a garbled, broken language. I couldn't get a clear signal out. I couldn't call for help. I was cut off. The smell of smoke intensified, constant now, clinging to my clothes, permeating the very air of the tower. I saw movements at the edge of my vision, shadows flitting between trees, just beyond the reach of my binoculars. I'd dismissed them as deers, bears, anything but what my gut told me they were. One evening, as the sun dipped below the mountains, painting the sky in fiery oranges and deep purples, I saw a flicker in the distance, a small fire, then another, further out, and another. They weren't random. They were slowly but surely forming a perfect circle, surrounding my tower. They were growing, creeping closer with an unnerving precision. It was deliberate. Someone was setting them. I grabbed my binoculars, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold them steady. I scanned the tree line, searching for an arsonist, and then I saw them. Shadowy figures, human-like but not quite. They moved with a strange, fluid grace, tending the fires, feeding them with dry branches. Their bodies seemed to shimmer in the heat, their faces obscured by the smoke in the distance. They weren't there to burn the forest down. They were there to trap something, to contain it, and I was inside their circle. The fires grew, smoke thick and choking, blotting out the stars. The heat was immense. Even from inside the tower, I could hear the crackling, the roar, and the frantic skittering of animals fleeing the inferno. But the figures outside remained calm, methodical, completing their circle. And then, through the smoke, I saw one of them look up, directly at my tower, its head tilted, and though I couldn't see its face, I felt its gaze, a heavy, ancient presence that saw right through me. It wasn't setting a fire to destroy, it was building a wall of fire, to keep something in, or to keep something out, and I was caught in the middle. I don't know how long I stayed in that tower, watching the ring of fire close in, watching the silent, shadowy figures tend their horrifying fence. I don't know how I survived. I just remember the smoke, the heat, and the terrible realization that the purpose of this fire was not destruction, but containment. I eventually found my way out, half crawling, half stumbling through the burnt out shell of the forest. the acrid smell of smoke forever in my nostrils. They found me weeks later, babbling, incoherent. They said I suffered from smoke inhalation and severe dehydration, that the isolation had played tricks on my mind. Well, I know what I saw, and sometimes, when the wind blows just right, I still smell that sweet, sickening smoke. I know the fires weren't meant for me, they were meant for something else, and I just happened to be in the way of whatever they were trying to keep in, or to keep out. And I still wonder, what was so terrifying that it needed a wall of fire to contain it? My name is Kevin. My wife, Lisa, and I bought our place deep in the Appalachian woods to escape. We were sick of the city, the noise, the suffocating pace. The ad called it a unique off-grid homestead. It was a beautiful, isolated property with an old log cabin, acres of untouched woods, and a profound silence that we thought was exactly what we needed. The realtor, a local with tired look in his eyes, gave us a passing comment about the small, overgrown cemetery plot in the backyard. "Old family plot for a family that went bad," he said with a shrug, and quickly changed the subject. We thought nothing of it. We thought it was charming. The first few weeks were perfect. We started a garden, fixed up the old cabin, and revelled in our new life, simple life. The only oddity was the graveyard. It wasn't marked with names, just with crude, uncarved field stones jutting out of the earth like broken teeth. We left it alone, a silent, cautious part of our property. Then we started hearing the sounds, faint at first, a rhythmic scraping and digging that seemed to come from the direction of the cemetery, but only at night. We told ourselves it was just animals, a badger or a fox, but the sounds were too deliberate, too consistent, like a shovel hitting rock. Our old dog, Buster, he started acting strange too. He'll stand at the edge of the woods, his hackles raised, barking frantically at the ground in a cemetery plot. He would whine and refuse to go near that part of the yard. The digging sound grew louder, more frantic. One night, a thick, putrid fog rolled in from a direction of the cemetery, so dense and sickly sweet it smelled of rotting leaves and damp earth. It clung to the house, settling in every nook and cranny. We heard a loud thud on our porch. Lisa screamed, and we both froze, listening. We heard the sound of heavy footsteps, then the scrape of something being dragged away. When we checked, there was nothing on the porch, but a single, ancient-looking lantern sat on the doormat. Its glass was shattered, and its handle was coated in dark, sticky substance that smelled of rust and something else I couldn't place. We ran back inside, locking the doors and windows. The scratching and digging sound started again, even louder now, coming from the woods all around the house. It was not just one sound, but dozens. We could hear the rhythmic thud of a shovel hitting dirt, the groan of wood, and the chilling, slow dragging of something heavy. The next morning, the fog was gone, and the sun was shining. The world looked normal again. We decided to pack up and get out of there. We walked to the backyard to get our dog, and that's when we saw it. Buster was whimpering, huddled by the back door, and his eyes were wide with terror. The cemetery plot was no longer small. A new row of fresh, disturbed earth led from the edge of the woods, and in the middle of it was a new, uncarved fieldstone. It was a perfect match for the others. The number of stones had increased by one. We stared at it, speechless. The family hadn't gone bad, they had been taken. The digging we heard wasn't animals, it was them, or something else, creating a new plot, a new grave. And the lantern was a warning, a message. We left that day, leaving everything behind. We never looked back, but I can't shake the image of that new stone, fresh and raw, sitting in that old, cursed cemetery. And sometimes, late at night, when the world is silent, I swear I can hear the distant, methodical sound of a shovel hitting dirt, and I wonder What new grave is being prepared?